Hi, this is Amber from LoveFit, and I am talking today about the massive topic that is postnatal exercise. So obviously, pregnancy and postnatal women are my main client area. I know a fair bit about this. I've been working with this population for a long time. I have seen lots of different types of births, lots of different pregnancies, and the question I get asked time and time again from pretty much 100% of my clients and friends and anybody else in this situation is, when can I get back to my exercise? What exercise should I be doing? When will I be back to normal? This dreaded normal concept that women have. So this is something I could probably give a whole day seminar on, if I'm honest. I want to try and condense it into a video for you to watch if this is a question you've had. So if you've had a baby, no doubt this is something that's on your mind, especially if you were exercising pre-pregnancy and during your pregnancy. So where to start? Okay, the first thing is to realise that unless you are a professional athlete or perhaps like a serious competitive athlete, there is no need to rush. There is actually no benefit, and that's the key thing. There is no benefit to ploughing headlong into your pre-pregnancy exercise routine the second you've had your 6-week check. If that routine included lots of kind of plyometrics, so bouncing, jumping, very heavy lifting, or lots of kind of high impact, intense exercise. Now, the reason for this is because people kind of think, right, surely the sooner I can get back into it, the sooner I'll get my body back. Again, whatever that really means, things are going to be different after having a baby. But people kind of think that that's going to be the best, quickest way to their recovery. And what I want to try and stress here is that it is not necessarily the quickest way. Sometimes it can be a very long road to recovery if you go back to things too quickly. Okay, so I think what I should also state is that every single woman is going to be different. I cannot be entirely prescriptive here. I can't say, I think a lot of the old exercise advice around the postnatal period and pregnancy was very prescriptive. It was, for example, in pregnancy, a woman should not have her heart rate go above 120 beats per minute. A woman should not lie on her back after 16 weeks. She should not stand on one leg because of fear of falling over. And in the postnatal period, once you've had your 6 to 8 week check, you can go back to exercise, perhaps don't do some crunches. And that was kind of it. Now, my very good friend and incredibly passionate educator, Jenny Burrell, she actually has said, these words, which are, exercise prescription for postnatal women and pregnancy, and actually pretty much anyone. Exercise prescription is not about having a set of rules to follow. You can't follow rules because every single situation is going to be unique. Just as every birth story is unique and every baby is unique, how you return to exercise is going to be different. So there is a lot of it's very individual, and a lot of it is really going to be down to your own gut instinct and being truthful to yourself about how you feel, what you feel ready for. But there are a couple of big things I want to touch on. So firstly is the good old pelvic floor, okay? That's really, for me, what this all boils down to. And I'm sorry if I sound like a stuck record, but as I say, I've worked with hundreds of women now, and I have seen too many times people with issues that result because of doing the wrong kinds of exercise or going back to things too quickly. Now, I also do not want to create a climate of fear. This is not about saying crunches are the devil, you will never plank again in your life, any of these things. And it's also not about trying to make women not exercise. That is equally as detrimental and equally as bad for your pelvic floor. If you're not moving at all and not engaging and not working muscles, then, that's not going to do you and your postnatal body any good. So, of course, there's that camp of people who are too scared to do anything or just don't get round to it for whatever reason. On the other hand, you've got the women who are desperate to get back to it and they want to go for it. They want to feel a sweat. They don't feel like they're exercising if they're not getting sweaty. And I understand that. I really do. And I'm not saying that you can't do that, and, even relatively quickly. But what you have to come back to every time is this going to help my recovery or potentially delay it? Okay. And it comes back to the pelvic floor. So you need to be doing, certainly in the immediate postpartum period, you need to be doing exercises that are pelvic floor friendly, not pelvic floor attacking. You do not want to be, even if you had a good birth, even if you had a very quick recovery, no stitches, you didn't have a section, completely natural vaginal delivery, and you're feeling good. 4 weeks after having a baby, 6 weeks, even 8 weeks, there's nothing to be gained from going out on a run. I know women who've felt really proud that they went out for runs, at 6 weeks postnatal. Oh, it was only a short run. Well, what was the benefit of that, really? That all that is doing is putting a huge amount of pressure on your pelvic floor. And even if you're not aware of any kind of incontinence or any issues like that, your pelvic floor is still at that stage hugely weakened. All those hormones going through your body, the ligaments are massively loosened. You've got much more risk of doing yourself a knee injury and much more risk of further down the line incurring some kind of prolapse at worst or mild incontinence at best. So really, 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 do you need to do these things? Now, in some cases, yes. And that's fine. As long as you know the risks, then you can make an informed decision about what to do. But I hate to see, it just makes me really upset when I see, friends as well, dashing off on runs or going back to like body attack classes where they're bouncing up and down, leaping around with no kind of modification. Because they think that's going to be the best thing for them. And actually it's not. So you can build back up to that. But first of all, let's look at getting pelvic floor and core function back to normal. Make sure you can do everything completely pain-free, completely without any uncomfortable feeling. And when women kind of laugh slightly and say, oh yeah, I had a bit of a mild accident, I peed myself a bit, or yeah, it felt a bit like bearing down. But that's normal, right? Because I had a baby recently. Well, yeah, it's normal, and you shouldn't be doing stuff to make that feel worse, okay? Now, secondly, we have to think about, what do you enjoy? Actually, fundamentally, what makes you happy? What's the right exercise for you? So going to a postnatal yoga class, if and I'm not dissing this, again, different yoga teachers, different classes, different preferences, but if that postnatal yoga class really is just a bit of sitting around and doing a few basic twists and you know you could do more than that and that doesn't feel right for you, then don't feel you have to go and do that. But, if what you love is going and running half marathons, it might be worth, working at the best way to get back to that quickly. And the best way to get back to that quickly is probably not going to be going straight out for a long run. It's probably going to be working on restoring your pelvic floor, doing some exercises to strengthen your glutes, make sure your pelvis is really stable before you start adding those miles. Start with lots of walking. When you can walk a long way without any problem with your hips, then you can, further down the line, start adding in some gentle running and build up to it. I've been asked before, well, what kind of intense exercise is appropriate? I mean, one of the ones that comes up a lot is spinning. Now, actually, spinning is great because it is going to be low impact. There's no, you're not bouncing around on your knees, so there's no potential issue to the pelvic floor. Obviously, immediately after having a baby, in those first few months, certainly early weeks, the perineum's likely to be feeling a bit tender, and those spinning bikes are unforgiving at the best of times. So I would say that's going to be your main limiting factor. When are you comfortable to sit on one of those seats? And obviously you're up out of the saddle a lot of the time in a spin class. But in terms of intensity, it's a great way when you're ready to get back to that. It's a good low impact way of working. You can get a sweat on if that's your thing. So if you love that kind of pumping music, then why not go for it? The only thing I would say is, obviously, when you've had a baby, you are constantly holding, cuddling, whether you're breastfeeding, bottle feeding, all that feeding a baby involves rounded shoulders. You're sitting on your bum a lot of the time. There's a lot of kind of sleepless nights. You might be pacing around holding the baby. There's lots of bending and lifting. All of this means you're naturally training all these front muscles all the time. The hips get very tight, the chest gets very tight, the shoulders get rounded. So spinning and cycling is kind of exacerbating and training those muscles more. That's not necessarily a bad thing, especially if you're only doing it once, twice a week as part of a routine. But what you do want to make sure is that you're working and training these opposing muscles, okay? So do make sure, this will apply to all of you if you've had a baby. A key thing in those early stages is to get these muscles working. Get exercises that are working your posterior chain, your upper back, your glutes. Keep working on that core connection. Once you've got all of that, then you can build up to all those other things that you missed, but don't neglect it. don't neglect those crucial parts, because they will all help you get back to whatever your thing was before. Okay, so I know I haven't given you any kind of concrete answers, but that's exactly the point. There are no rights or wrongs. It's knowing about your pelvic floor. It's knowing that peeing yourself or feeling bearing down or feeling unstable is not right. It might be common. It is not good or normal. You can do things to make things better first. So if you've got any of that going on, don't even go near those other things. But of course, I want to say that this is not about bashing crunches. This is not about bashing planks. It's not about bashing running. I'm not saying those are bad exercises. They just might not be the best exercise for you at this point in your exercise journey. Having a baby hugely changes things. And if you're breastfeeding, for as long as you're breastfeeding, whether that's for a few weeks, few months, or years, your body is in a different situation while breastfeeding. So don't expect to be doing the things you were doing before pregnancy. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. As I say, there are some people who it is important to be able to do those things for actual professional reasons, or if you compete. But for most people, myself included, even where it's a profession, I don't have to be able to go and run. I don't have to be able to lift heavy weights. And I miss lifting heavy weights. I love doing it. I'll get back there at some point. Right now, that isn't actually the right thing for me. Even, with a 13-month-old, that is not the best way for me to train now. I'm not saying I don't lift. I do. I just don't lift crazy heavy. So, yeah, you've got to consider what are the muscles that need working, what's going to aid your recovery, what's going to get you back to what you want to do, and thirdly, what's safe for your pelvic floor. And that applies for a long time. As long as you're breastfeeding, as I say, there's still going to be some changes, but certainly in those early few months, just because you've had your 6-week check doesn't mean you should go back to what you did before, even if you feel great. And of course, if you don't feel great, if you have had a C-section, if you had a lot of stitches, if you've had any complications afterwards, if you're just super tired because you have a baby that doesn't sleep, and God, I know all about that, then you're not going to feel up to those exercises, and doing really intense stuff isn't going to help you. It'll probably just make you feel worse about yourself, because you're not going to be able to do things with that same vigor that you did before. So yeah, pick your exercises carefully. If you have questions about this, please ask me, because as I say, it's very individual, so I can maybe advise you a bit more. And in my postnatal classes, so if you're local to Cambridge, then my tummy time class is the perfect introduction back to exercise. And even within that, there are different levels I offer for those who are very new to class versus those who are beginning to be ready to kind of graduate back into slightly more intense exercise. But it's going to be a great way for you to do stuff in a pelvic floor safe environment with your babies around, with other mums, and meet other people. So yeah, drop me a line if you have questions. I hope that's helped answer some questions. I know it's a huge topic and I've kind of run through this really quickly, but yeah, I'm so passionate about making sure women feel confident and happy that I just want to try and give you a little bit of advice around that. Okay, so any questions, drop me a line. You can comment below this video. Otherwise I will hear from you via email, or yeah, pick up the phone. Take care. Bye bye.